Aye.
Mrs. Schukert,
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki,
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Comments from the public. The board values and encourages public comment on education issues and is now asking the public to email comments that it might have otherwise provided during the public comments portion of this meeting to the following email address, info@cuyhts.org. The board will strive to respond to all comments received as promptly as possible. Mr. Evans?
Okay, I've got an email, and I forwarded copies of this email along with the petition to all the board members as well. This email reads, Dear Superintendent Evans and the Cuyahoga Heights School Board, we, the parents of Cuyahoga Heights students, urge you to reverse the decision to offer remote-only education for this coming fall semester. While acknowledging the unprecedented nature of the pandemic and the need to take thorough precautions, we believe the benefits of returning to school outweigh the risks associated with remote learning. The initial plan put forth by the board was well thought out and flexible in allowing families to choose a plan that was in their best interest while still implementing the necessary accommodations to mitigate transmission and protect vulnerable students and faculty. The Cuyahoga County Board of Health has offered insufficient explanation or evidence as to the necessity to close schools. Overwhelming evidence points towards an insignificant health risk to school-age children and is supported by the CDC and statistics published on the county board website. The County Board of Health recommendations fail to incorporate a comprehensive consideration of all issues, neglecting the impact of school closing on the emotional, social, educational, and socioeconomic needs of children and their families. It is not the role of the County Board of Health, nor is it qualified to assess the wide-reaching societal implications of withholding classroom education. In making a blanket recommendation across the county, the Board of Health has imposed an imprecise, overly conservative method of public health management with a disregard for other equally important factors. As an addendum to this document, please find the copy of the CDC's recommendation, The Importance of Reopening America's Schools This Fall, posted on July 23rd. Please also see an excerpt as follows. Based on current data, the rate of infection among younger school children and from students to teachers has been low, especially if proper precautions are followed. They have also been reported of children being the primary sources of COVID-19 transmission among family members. This is consistent with data from both virus and antibody testing, suggesting that children are not the primary drivers of COVID-19 spread in schools or in the community. No studies are conclusive, but the available evidence provides reason to believe that in-person schooling is in the best interest of students, particularly in the context of appropriate mitigation measures similar to those implemented at essential workplaces. The choice is not whether to return to school or engage in remote learning. The choice is one of an opportunity for children to thrive and learn, or for them and their families to struggle and fall behind. We ask that you reinstate the fall 2020 school year as originally presented. Respectfully yours, the parents of Cuyahoga Heights Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, and thank you to those who provided that comment. I understand Ms. Schukert has a comment that she'd like to read into the record.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully I can do this right. Hold on, my phone just left. Okay. So this is an email that was also received it was sent to the board members, Mr. Evans and Mr. Young, today by Dr. Jenny Roy, our social studies department coordinator, and also the chat president. School board members, Mr. Evans and Mr. Young, on behalf of the chat executive board and numerous other members and outside coaches, I wanted to express our support for continuing to offer sports and other interactive activities such as marching band to our students as we move forward with the school year. I will keep this email short, but we feel that this is a different situation than in-class teaching, as these activities are completely voluntary, primarily outside, and with a few other safety protocols in place, we can safely and effectively give kids the opportunities for the social interaction they so desperately need right now. I know that our students' social and emotional well-being is of great concern to all of us, and continuing to offer extracurriculars safely when we open full virtual instruction will go a long way in helping significant portion of our students emotionally and academically, as coaches would then be able to touch base with their athletes on a more regular basis. I don't feel like I need to explain how valuable these activities are because you have all had family members or children of your own benefit from these activities, either currently or in the past. I acknowledge that there may be a few challenges, but I fully believe that if given the chance, CHS teachers and coaches will do what we always do, provide a safe and meaningful experience for our students and athletes. We just need the chance. Please feel free to reach out to me to discuss this matter further. And just to add to it, when I spoke with him to get his permission to read it during the public comments, something else that he shared and he said, talked about expanding on is that the coaches a lot of times also follow up with kids academically too. And so that was something he said that he had left out, but that how, students would definitely benefit also by having coaches help make sure they're on track with academics. That concludes my comment.
Thank you for offering that, and thank you to Mr. Roy for offering it as well. If there are no further public comments for the board's and others' consideration, may we move on to the treasurer's business? Mr. Muccio.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. Item 4A, recommendation. Motion to approve the minutes of the June 24th, 2020 regular meeting, July 9th, 2020 special meeting, and the July 29th, 2020 special meeting as found in attachment T1. Recommendation 5A. Motion to accept the bank reconciliation, financial reports, and payments for board review as of June 30th, 2020, as prepared and certified by the treasurer as accurate as found in attachment T2. Recommendation 5B. Motion to approve new vendors to the school district per W-9s attached as found in attachment T3. 5C. Motion to approve purchase orders over 5,000 as found in attachment T4. Recommendation 5D, motion to amend the Lamar lease number 20501 billboard lease agreement to convert the scheduled $130,000 lump sum payment into 12 equal monthly payments. All their terms and conditions of the lease will remain the same. Note this request was made by Lamar due to the unprecedented circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are agreeable to Lamar's request. Item 5E, motion to adopt the miscellaneous pay rates 2020-21 schedule. 5F, motion to accept and recognize the donation of 1,150 face coverings, masks from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. The Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, BWC, has announced a new program called Protecting Ohio's Workforce. We've got you covered. BWC's program is providing face coverings free of charge to the public employers who are in good standing and report payroll to the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Face coverings are funded from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation's existing budget. The cost of the coverings will not affect employer premiums. And recommendation 5G. Motion to approve the following then and now certificate pursuant to section 5705.41 of the Ohio Revised Code. It is hereby certified that both at the time of the making of this contractor order and at the date of the execution of the certificate, the amount required to pay this contractor order has been appropriated for the purpose of this contractor order and is in the treasury or in process of collection to the credit of the fund, free from any previous encumbrance. I ask for those motions for approval tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Muccio. May I have a motion for approval of the treasurer's consent agenda items?
So moved.
Ms. Etter move, second?
Second.
Mr. Naaman second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, there's quite a bit that I had there. What I wanted to do was spend about 15 or 20 minutes talking about 5A, how we ended fiscal year 2020. But before I jump into that, I just wanted to hit up the other items first. 5B is just approval of new vendors. We had 3 tonight, T-Mobile and 2 others, nothing out of the ordinary. For 5C, for our purchase orders, I'll open our attachment page that we have here. We had 5 for tonight. We had an open order, blanket purchase order for fuel for our buses, 60,000. Number 2 was Super Stitch. That's a uniform allowance for the transportation department. That was 5,200. Number 3 was Denise Morgan. This is for 5 professional development days from our Title I fiscal 2021 grant. That's 7,500. Number 4 is the Summit County ESC. That's also professional development in the areas of math and science. That's coming from our Title IIA fiscal 21 grant. That's $7,095. Number 5 is Champion Roofing. That's to re-insulate and seal ductwork for the auditorium rooftop unit that we have. That's $6,100. Item D, which is the billboard lease. So we were reached by Lamar, and Lamar bought out Clear Channel back in 2016. So what Lamar is asking is, because of the pandemic, their cash flow, because we're seeing companies slash their advertising budgets in an effort to save money. So Lamar is asking us, instead of making a lump sum payment, which occurs once a year, and we signed we approved an amendment to the lease agreement for 10 years, and I think we're in year 7 of that 10-year span, which is $130,000 paid every August 15th. But Lamar is asking, instead of that lump sum payment coming August 15th, rather that they divide that within 12 equal monthly payments and then pay those as we go forward. I don't see anything unreasonable with their request, which is why I have it on tonight's agenda for recommendation for approval. Item 5E is the
Matt?
miscellaneous pay. Yep.
I wanted to ask you about that. So just to make it absolutely clear, it's just distributing the full amount that they would owe us over a monthly plan
Yes.
instead of one lump sum. And everything else remains intact. Like they're not going to come to a month and say, we paid you last month, but we don't want to pay you this month, or we won't be paying you for the rest of the year or anything like that. They still have to stay with, there's no other change in the terms of the
Correct. All of their terms and conditions of the lease will remain the same. Yes.
Okay. And we don't anticipate that there'd be a problem with collecting on a monthly basis.
Not right now. No.
Okay.
If I go to 5E, adoption of the miscellaneous pay rate schedule, I'll open this attachment up. Kind of redid this pay rate schedule, now numbered everything, so it goes down to 12. Worked with our administrative team for the amounts that we had. Nothing's unreasonable or out of the ordinary that we had. We did bump up some of the amounts, a reasonable amount, as we go forward on this miscellaneous pay rate schedule. Here. 5F, this is to recognize and accept the donation of the face coverings that came from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. We have a little picture of it right here. What they look like. And 5G
Do you know how many we got? How many did we receive?
Yeah, it was 1,150.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yep, it's quite a bit.
It is.
Let's see. For 5G, this was the then and now certificate. It was the same thing that we had the previous meeting. This is for the 5th grade pod area furniture. Again, it was a purchase order from 2020 that was approved through our normal process that we have. We just closed it out as we closed out fiscal year 20. The invoice came after the fact, so we're just putting this on in order to pay that bill. So it's nothing out of the ordinary. 5A. Okay, I wanted to jump into this.
I have one other question? Excuse me,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
No.
Before we have one question, could I have a little explanation about this Joshua Chapin athletic trainer for tournament? What tournament are we talking about? And
Yeah.
is it even going to happen?
This is for an athletic trainer for our tournament. And this is from Ryan Kelber, our athletic director. Oh, I'm trying to jog my memory on this one. It may be one of those where I have to talk to Ryan and get back, unless Tom or Matt Young happens to know. But if not, I can talk to Ryan on the specifics and get back to you on this.
I believe this is for tournament coverage for OHSAA sponsored tournaments where we need additional coverage.
All right, so at this time, we don't know if something like that is even going to take place, but we're approving this in case it does, so the trainer would be paid.
We have to have his W-9 approved or we can't pay him.
Okay.
If and when it happens.
If and when. Okay,
Correct. This is just to approve the W-9 in order for us to set up the new vendor in our accounting system.
Okay, thank you.
So if I go to 5A, to talk about fiscal year end 2020, I'm going to start by clicking on item T2C. So hopefully everybody's able to open that up. I'll open it up here. It's going to be hard to see on kind of this main shared screen that I have. It's going to be really small. But what I wanted to point out was this is our entire budgetary process for the whole year. Over here, again, it's going to be small, but it's going to be column
Matt, you
B.
need to blow it up because we've got one screen and that's all we've got.
Yeah.
So if you could blow it up and move it around so everybody can see it.
I think this is a little better for everybody right here. Let me try to get the bottom in. So in this cell over here, which is column B, row 7 that we have, this was our beginning cash balance in the general fund, which was $13,870,633. And then we have all the other funds down here, which totals to the total of all funds, $17,533,691. So this is our beginning cash balance column for the entire year that we have. Then we go through these columns here, which is modifications to revenue. So when we have changes in our revenue, and I cite everything down here for what has changed as we go along and everything's tick marked. We ultimately come to our final estimated revenue for the year. And this column, column Q, is what our total revenues for the year was. Then we come to our appropriation columns here. And whenever we have a change in appropriations and the changes are cited down here, that's brought to the Board of Education for approval. And we have the resolution as well as the date of approval for these appropriation modifications throughout the year. And the most recent one that we did was 6/24/2020, when we did the final one for 2020's fiscal year. Column AA is going to be our total expenses for the year. And then this is our ending cash balance for the year. The column right next to it in the right is our encumbrances that we would have, still bills to pay that we haven't received the invoices yet. But this is our ending cash for the general fund for fiscal year 2020, which is $14,799,535. So it's almost $1 million better. And I'll talk about that more when we look closer at the general fund. But the one thing I wanted to point out from this spreadsheet is our beginning cash number for the total of all funds when we started fiscal year 2020. And this would be the ending number for the prior year, 2019's fiscal year. That was $17,533,691, so 17.5 million. So where we ended fiscal year 2020 was 18,495,974. So overall, the whole district had a rise in revenue to the tune of about $1 million for all of our, funds, our position, our standing. So we started the year 17.5 with the total of all of our funds, and we ended the year 18.4, rounded up 18.5. So it's $1 million swing to the good. So our position as a district financially is even stronger than when we began the year. If I close out of here.
Congratulations and thank you for your work.
Yeah, it's good. And we'll
It's very
touch
good.
base more. Yeah, we'll touch base more on our general fund here. And again, this is going to be probably small, and I'll try to blow it up as much as I can, but I don't want to make it too cumbersome. But if everybody's able to open these on their own screen, which is T2D, this is our lead sheet for our general fund for the entire year. And again, just kind of highlighting here in the blue was the beginning cash balance that we had, and the ending cash balance down here in the red. So we can see as we go through, these are all of our lines of revenue on the top, and these are all of our expenses below it here. And to the right in these columns, we have the November forecast figures in the brown column all the way on the end. In the black column, we have the May 2020 5-year forecast figures, and then we have what ended up being our fiscal year end 2020 budget figures. And then we have our actuals as they came in. So I just want to start going into each one of these line items that we had. And again, the general fund saw $1 million surplus this year. When we were looking at revenue from November to May, I'm going to look at the brown column and the black column over here. The total was 16 million back in November, and we adjusted that to 16.5 million in May, and that slightly went up to 16.568 million by the fiscal year end budget. We actually came in a little better with our actuals, which was 16.6 million. And again, I'm going to touch base on each one of these individual sheets as we go through. So our revenue gradually went up, and we actually I guess you can say we overachieved from what we thought we would end the year with for our fiscal year end budget of 2020 with our actual number. Now for our expense side, we can see the same thing. So when we started the figures in our November 2019 5-year forecast, that was 16,875,269. That was the same figure that we used for May's 2020 5-year forecast, the same 16,875,269. And that became also our ending fiscal year end 2020 budget. And that was the starting amount that we had appropriated back September 18th, 2019. So we haven't changed our appropriations in our general fund since that point in time. Now our expenses, as we look, came in lower. So 16.8 was the amount of expenses that we thought potentially we could hit as far as our budget goes for the year. But we only needed expense-wise 15,686,143. So I kind of operate under the philosophy that we look at all of our expenses as needs and wants. So as a public school district, we only have so many ways that we can generate as a nonprofit revenue coming into the school district. We're not essentially selling a service. So as a nonprofit, we have to be able to incur all of those necessary needs and expenses with limited availability to generate revenue. So we want to leave enough contingency in that budget to be able to tackle objectively all of the needs for the district, as well as reasonably prioritize all those wants that we have. And we want to leave enough contingency for all of that. When we went through our 2020 school year, fiscal year, we only needed 15.6 along with those reasonable wants that we had. So if we look at payroll right here, the figure was 8.6 and we came in at 8.4. So that's about a $200,000 swing. For retirement, and we'll look at these individual spreadsheets as we go too, was 3.3 was our fiscal year end 2020 budget, and we came in at 3.2. So we'll kind of break that down as we go, but I don't want to go too fast here. Any questions before I start going into the individual spreadsheets? Okay.
What's the one right below that one?
This is purchase services, and we'll talk about this one too.
Okay. Because that came down quite a bit.
Yes. So let me go into the first one. It's going to be our tax revenue. So this is T2E, and I'll make this bigger. So for our tax revenue, the amount was $9,104,000, which was the estimate back to the lead sheet. And we hit 100% of our estimate, $9,104,709. And for property, for that line, which is our property taxes, we see it's a combination of 3 sublines. It's going to be our class 1 and 2 real property taxes. It's going to be our delinquent real property taxes, as well as the settlement with Omega Valley View and Nat Charlotte for what we had. So again, we estimated 9.1 and we came in to the dollar on that estimate of 9.1. So below that, we have our tangible personal property tax line. But again, this is what we call our PUP, Public Utility Personal Property Tax, here in the pink. And again, for PUP, we have our definitions down here. It's for the railroads, the natural gas companies, waterworks, and so forth, for what we have for the district. And we can see that the amount for that line was $2,676,932 was our estimate. We came into that amount on the dollar as we ended the year. $2,676,932. Now below in the green, we have our property tax allocation. And this is made up of all these sublines that we have down here, which is our homestead exemption, our non-business credit, our owner occupied credit, and our reimbursement for the TPP phase out. If I scroll over here, our estimate for the year was $2,596,481, and we came in at that amount, $2,596,481. And again, we can see throughout the year in these boxes as we go, the amounts when they came in were paid to us. I want to make note that the amount right here, the $2,154,051, which is the amount that we received for the TPP phase out, that amount drops every year by approximately $200,000. So we're going to see a drop next year by $200,000, the year after by $200,000, the year after. So if we just had this amount going forward, we'd be in a very good position revenue-wise without losing that phase out for the TPP money that we have. I just wanted to make note of that. Close out here. Again, I'm going to go back to the lead sheet just to show kind of what we were looking at. So on this lead sheet, we're looking at our property tax line right here. We're looking at, try to click out of here. Perfect. All right. So we were looking at this line here, our general property taxes. We were looking at our tangible personal property tax, which was the PUP. And then we were also looking at our property tax allocation, which was the green, which was made up of those four sublines that we looked through. And that was $2,596,481. So now we're going to look at these next two lines here, which is our state aid. It's unrestricted and restricted. So I'm going to exit out of here. And I'm going to open this. So this spreadsheet that's on the screen right now, if everybody's able to open T2F, is our restricted and unrestricted state aid. So this was an interesting year for restricted and unrestricted state aid from the state. So we initially started the year, we look at July's column, and I'll make that bigger. And we were operating under the old system for recording revenue where we had the opportunity grant, targeted assistance, K-3 literacy, limited English proficiency, and so forth. And we had that for about 3 months. Then in October, the state changed the way that it was sending foundation payments to districts. So no longer were we seeing money split out in all of these sub lines that we would have, which makes it easier for us to discern what the items of revenue are coming to us. But rather what the state did back in October is they lumped it all together in this line 12, which is foundation formula. So that's why we see all these negatives moving the numbers out of these previous lines and then just lumping it to this one line that we have right down here, which is foundation formula. And then that was the method in which the state had delivered our revenue since that point in time. Now we come to May and June, and that's when Governor DeWine issued his statewide cuts. And I have a little box down here in black. And this was our original aid, was $542,339. The cuts per Governor DeWine for our district were $231,630, which brings our new foundation, our new foundation aid at $310,709. Now the way that $310,709 was split was $302,014 would be to our foundation formula, $6,994 would be to economic disadvantage, and $1,501 to career tech education. And then that brings us to our $310,709. So if I go up here, we can see our $302,214 for the state aid, and that's with rounding where we ended up the year. And this was the payment in which we paid back the negative $188,000 in the month of June when we sent that money back to the state for Governor DeWine's cuts. Now, since then, we saw Senator Dolan, Matt Dolan's bill be passed, and we're going to see that revenue come to us, but in fiscal 21, the current fiscal year in which we're in. So that did not occur and happen and be recorded in fiscal 20. So below that foundation formula line, We have a couple other sublines for preschool special education, as well as special education transportation, casino tax revenue, and a couple small miscellaneous items that we have. And I'll scroll over here to the right-hand side. And again, for those items, we're looking at about $30,000 to $40,000 coming in. It's nothing material as we would go. And if anybody's curious on the definitions of some of these items, we have the definitions down here on the second half of the spreadsheet that we have. So that's our unrestricted grants and aid for the year. Our restricted grants and aid is made up of 3 sublines. So economic disadvantage, career tech education funding, as well as our catastrophic cost reimbursement. And we have those definitions right down here below in the colored squares to try to make it a little easier to see. So again, we see our $6,994 coming in for our economic disadvantaged, our $1,501 coming in for the career tech education funding, and our estimate for the year was $117,000 for catastrophic cost, and that came in at $121,000, so a little better than what we thought. So when we look at our actuals to our estimates, for unrestricted, we came in at 100%, and for restricted, we came in a little above 100 at 103%. So I'll exit out of here, go back to our lead sheet. So we just looked at these 2 lines here, which would be the 416 and the restricted line below it. Now let's look at all other operating revenue. And that's going to be $1,599,695. Exit out of here. Open all other operating revenue for the district. And we can see our $1,599,000 up here. You can see what our estimate was, $1,556,000. So our actuals came in a little better than what was estimated for what we had. The first couple lines, the first 3, will be our tuition. So go to the right. We can see tuition for the year came in at $567,000, and we were basically right on that mark with our estimate. Below that is our tuition for the next year, 2021's year, so people prepay that tuition. Now, keep in mind that we had this estimate of $84,000 back in May, but since that point in time, we actually had pushed back the due date on tuition for the upcoming school year because of COVID-19. So that's why there's a little bit of a dip here from the $84,000 to the $34,000 that we actually saw coming in. Below that line, we have 2 lines, which is going to be our SF14 tuition here on line 4. And line 5 is our SF14H, which is special education tuition. And in the boxes, I have the time periods in which we receive those funds. I'll come over here to the right. We outperform our estimates. So our estimate was $250,000 for non-special education and $30,000 for special education, and we came in higher for both, $285,000 and $33,000. Is everybody still there? It's so quiet talking, just by myself. All right, I hear somebody. So, okay. Below that, we have our interest on investments in 6, 7, and 8. So 6 is going to be Red Tree in the red. 7 is going to be Star Ohio, and then we have Huntington Hybrid. The main 2 are going to be Red Tree and Star Ohio. So if we scroll over to the right, we had $73,000 for Red Tree. We outperformed that with our estimate $123,000. $225,000 was our estimate for Star Ohio. We came in at $222,000. We can see that the amounts for Star Ohio were in the mid 20s, so 25,000, 26,000, 27,000, 25,000, 20, and then it dipped down to 10,000, 8,000, 6,000. Now that's due to, if we look down here at the bottom half of the page, we have our investment analysis, and we can see our monthly average yield, and we can see that Star Ohio started as high as 2.4 in the month of July, and those rates had dipped to now being in June at 0.55. So we lost a significant portion, and that's all due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it started dipping significantly right around January, February, and especially March is really where the dip happened. Below that, nothing's major except for the line that we receive for the employee share that we book for medical, dental, vision, insurance. those amounts came in basically as what we had estimated. And down here, third to the last line, the 50,065, that was a one-time payment for the real estate assessment reimbursement that we saw from the county. Any questions on this? Okay. And then I'll go back.
So
Yep.
Matt, what's the explanation that Red Tree just did like $50,000 better than expected? But yet, I can't think of the other one, didn't do as well.
Well,
Sure.
I would just say it was our initial estimate for what we had. And as it was trending, we were outperforming it. And again, if I click on our bank reconciliation, T2A, on here, we can see, and I'll scroll down to it, we have our Red Tree monthly analysis here. And then on this page of it, which is included, we can see all of our different allocations for where we're investing our approximately $4 million here at the bottom, and I'll blow this up, with Red Tree. So Red Tree, we have what, about 15 or so certificates of deposit. And we can see the due dates on these, and they're starting to creep into 2024 when these CDs are locked up.
Yeah.
Some are expiring sooner. So it's when the CDs expire, it's when we really see that maturity and the money's come to us. We have a small amount of commercial paper right down here, and the money market funds. So the majority of our investments with Red Tree are in CDs, and it's locking up those CDs for a certain specific time with the money
Yeah.
coming due at the end. And then it's reinvested again by Red Tree. And we have
Okay.
approximately $4 million in that. If I go back to our lead sheet, and we'll just look at our expenses, and that's pretty much it. So we're going to look at personnel services, and we're looking at $8,438,000 as our actual. So I'll close out of here, go to personnel services, which is T2H. I'm going to make this bigger. So at the top of the screen, we can see our payrolls, and we have usually 2 payrolls a month, and we have 2 months out of the year with a 3rd payroll. So that's why we see that 3rd payroll. And we're going to have that in August, and we're going to have it also in January. That's the months with 3 payrolls. And the second half of the sheet down here is the same figures up here, but it's just broken out by object code, whether it's certified or non-certified. And if I scroll all the way over here and make this a little bigger, we can see the amounts that came in. And again, our overall total is $8,438,000, and that's about $200,000 or so less than our estimate. So we came in at 97.9% of what we thought. And we've been watching this all year, our percentage against our budget. Our top line here is going to be object code 111, which is salaries for our certified employees, our teaching staff. And we can see that our budget was $5,643,690, and our actual was $5,557,682. So we came in at 98.5% of that estimate. And again, you want to leave enough, contingency in case a new teacher has to come in or whatnot. So you don't want to completely, at least my philosophy is, you don't want to completely budget up against that full amount just in case something happens. You want to leave at least a reasonable amount of space in between. The line below that would be our substitute temporary teaching staff certified. And we can see that those amounts really dropped down after March when the pandemic hit. So in March, it was 23,000, and then it went to 8,000, 8,000, 8,000. And the reason we were seeing those 8,000s is because we had 2 long-term subs on our books, Caitlin Akerley as well as Linda Mayer, and they were getting paid out of that line item as long-term subs for the district. Our estimate was 210,000. We came in at 183, so that's about $30-some thousand difference. Below that, we have our supplementals for certified, overtime, and so forth. Severance, termination benefits right down here. Those are going to be for any employees that retire. And then hopping down here, we have our classified, same thing. So classified salaries, classified subs, non-certified supplementals, overtime, perfect attendance, vacation leave, severance benefits. So the 2 employees that we had retiring, Sandy and Dave Domzowski, will be coming from that point. And again, our overall was about $200,000 less than what our budget was, our actuals. Any questions before I exit out to the next spreadsheet. Okay. So the next one we're going to look, and I'll pull up our lead sheet, and after this I'll just kind of directly go to them. But we're going to look at employee retirement insurance benefits, then purchase services, supplies and materials, capital outlay, other objects, and then transfers out. And I'll go quickly through those. So if we go to employee insurance, employee retirement insurance benefits, I'll blow this up. Again, we can see our total was 3.2. That was our actual. Our budget was 3.3. So we had about $100,000 under budget. And again, it's the same philosophy that, we want to look at the top line here, which is our STS employer share of retirement. We budgeted 875,000. Our actual came in at 851,000. So in the 97th percentile, using up that budget. But again, don't want to budget too tightly and not leave enough contingency within that amount. So the top couple lines are going to be retirement for certified. Below that, items 4 through 8 are going to be retirement for non-certified. One item I want to point out is going to be our insurance benefits right here. It's going to be line 9 for certified and line 10 for non-certified. And if we go across, the amount that we had budgeted for certified was 1.1 million, and we came in at that 1.1. And for non-certified, it was 506,000, which we came in basically at that amount as well. Below that, we have employee reimbursements and other fringe benefits for the district. And we're going to have some variances here where our budgets are higher than what our actuals came in. So for the first couple lines, we can see that our budget was 32, 22, 33, and our actuals came in a lot less. That's due to the fact that these lines here are for tuition reimbursement for our employees, whether they're an elementary school employee, middle school employee, or high school. So we want to leave enough there as far as the budget goes to make sure that we have enough to cover everybody, electing that collective bargaining agreement reimbursement that they would so choose. 2 other items I just want to point out would be the last 2 of the last 3 lines that we have here. So $20,000 was an estimate, and then $60,000 was an estimate. We came in actual at $11,000 and $47,000. So these 2 lines down here would be fringe benefits, cell phone reimbursement, professional dues. So that was $20,000 amount budgeted. We came in $11,000 for that. And below that is going to be our workers' compensation amount. And that was estimated at $60,000 was the budget. We came in at $47,000, so about $10,000 less in that area too. And again, if anybody's curious on any of the items here, we have definitions down here on the bottom page. Any questions, or I'll move on to the next. Okay. Purchase services. This is the largest variance that we had. So I'll come here. So our actuals, 2,916,022, and our budget was 3.4, almost $3.5 million. Now again, it's the philosophy of having enough in the budget to, be able to accomplish all of the needs as a nonprofit public school district entity, because a lot, sometimes those are non-funded mandates that we have in instances that we would have to be able to have enough funds to, in order to accomplish and do that. So as we go, we can see, differences here is going to be, the budget was 120,000, the actual came in at 103,000. And that line would be for our outside speech and OT and PT employees that we have for the district. Below that, I'm going to point out PSI, our health services contract. We came in at 77,000 for PSI for the fiscal year. 110,000 was the budget, so that's about a $30,000 difference. Again, we can see that we didn't have any expenses in May or June for that line as the pandemic hit, and we really cut a lot of operations that were taking place at that point in time. But we can see a lot of the budgets and a lot of the actuals and the differences that we have here. If I point out line 61, which is going to be professional services legal, our legal costs, the budget was $79,500. We came in at $41,738. So significantly lower than the budget for what we had set up for it. I'll keep going through. A lot of these objects or items here are going to be repair and maintenance, cleaning services. I want to point out our utilities as we go. So our utilities, I'm going to look at this line 177 for electric. So for our electric utility, if my screen doesn't freeze up. So the amount in our budget here for this line was 180,000 for electric, and our actuals came in at 137,000. So that's about what, $40,000 difference that we see. Below that is going to be our water and sewer utility, and below that's going to be our heat utility. So we came in lower on all of those. So for this one, it was 90,000 in the budget. We came in at 70,000, so a $20,000 difference for water and sewer. And for heat gas, our budget was 82,000. We came in at 71, so it's about a $10,000 difference. So again, just the total number of adding up all those differences came out to be this overall $500-some thousand amount that we had in the budget available to us. Close out of here, go to supplies and materials. The same thought. So on our supplies and materials, the total was 406,000. Our budget for the year was 634,290. So it's about a $200 or so thousand difference. And we can just see a lot of line item budgets and the actuals that came in areas that we didn't use those figures that we had in the budget. Close out of here. We'll go to capital outlay. The same thing. 69,222 is the actual. Our budget was 142,915, and we can see the line items that make up the differences there. Other objects. I'll quickly pull this up. It's pretty close in other objects. 218 was the actual, 218,000. The budget was 237,000. The biggest line item is going to be the fees that are taken out from us, the county auditor and treasurer fees, line 11 that we have. That was 158,000 that we budgeted and 158,000 that was taken out. So we pretty much hit our mark on what that line item would be. I exit out of here and I go to transfers out, which is going to be the last sheet for the general fund. We can see the 3 transfers that were board approved for the year. So we had this first one, which was the repayback of the HB 264 debt. And then in June, we had the 2 transfers for the athletic fund of 100,000 and then 75,000 for the food service fund. And that's where we come to the $1 million surplus that we see again in our general fund. So I'll just bring up this lead sheet. So just overall short answer is we're in a much stronger position right now, ending fiscal 20, going to fiscal 21. Will that have a material impact on the 5-year forecast that we're going to update in November of this year? Potentially. There are a lot of different unforeseen factors taking place right now with the COVID-19 that, kind of have to see how some of them play out. But this is very favorable to the district for where we're at right now in time. So it's an accomplishment. Just wanted to pull up. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you and the administration and everyone involved in budgeting and trying to forecast revenues as well as expenditures. Clearly, everybody is reading from the same playbook. You're being able to come up with very accurate budgeted items, and that's based upon the work that you're doing with the rest of the staff. And likewise, they're working with you to help you produce sound products. So thank you.
Yep. It's a total team effort between all of us at the school district. I just wanted to point out one other fund, which would be our permanent improvement fund. So I'm going to open our revenue sheet for permanent improvement. It's T2Q. I'll make this a little bigger. So our actual was 64,000. Our estimate was 703,000 that came in, and we hit our mark on every item except this one right here, the 65,000. And that's number 3 for charter seal tax incentive. It's actually a new agreement. And it's actually the note down here at the bottom. So a lot of our tax sharing agreements are split out down here at the bottom. So again, we do not have a PI levy on the books right now. So the only revenue coming in that's building up the permanent improvement fund would be from these tax sharing agreements that we have. So below we have all of the information for these tax sharing agreements between us and the village. So for the first one, which is agreement 310-0401, we can see that the amounts that we received in the previous couple of years, 281,255, 201. We have the next payment for this coming in September of 2020. And we actually know what that payment's going to be from our recent meeting that we had between Cuyahoga County and the village, and that's about 330,000, I want to say. Below that is our next agreement 310-0401. It's a different resolution, Second Amendment with it. We have specific payments coming to us. So we have 100,513. So 2 more of those payments to be received. Below would be the new agreements on the books, and this one hasn't commenced yet. So there was some thought it was going to officially begin in fiscal 20, but that's not the case. It's going to officially begin in fiscal 21. So our school district legal counsel, David Seed, who works and writes these up, he's our point person to go to. So we're going to see that $65,000 specific payment come to us in fiscal 21. And below that, and it's actually for 2 areas. So it's agreement 310-1701. It deals with real property tax compensation as well as payroll income tax revenue. So these are the specifics between the 2 various sides of that agreement that we have. So again, our revenue was 640,000. Our estimate was 703 for the year. And then I'll bring up our expenses for permanent improvement. Let me see what's revenue. Bingo. So this is our expense spreadsheet for our permanent improvement fund. Our total was 832,000. Our budget was a little over $1 million. And on this spreadsheet, we have 4 different sub funds in our 3 funds. So the first one is our permanent improvement fund 003, and then 4 zeros for a special cost center behind it. This is our permanent improvement fund. Below that is our HB 264 capital lease. And just want to point out that this is probably the highest expense out of the $832,000 amount that we have. So we spent about $250,000 here paying off that debt. But remember, we've completely paid off that debt, so that's completely off our books. So we're not going to see that going forward. Below that, we have our permanent improvement tech fund, which is.
Yeah, I can't take it now.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, no. I had nothing.
Okay. This is our permanent improvement tech fund. This is 0039197, and below that it's our recovery loss of asset account 0039412. And then we have little arrows and lines above all of these expenses, which just goes back to see what we spent regarding the permanent improvement fund for what we have. So like we bought, school buses here out of that line item in June. We can see the Chromebook purchase 173 on this line back in June. So again, it's just, wanted to point out, since this is one of our largest funds aside from the general fund, for what we have as far as expenses go. But again, we saw from the budget versus actual spreadsheet that our overall position for the district is more favorable to improve. So, so at this point in time, we're on steady footing. Unless anybody else wants me to jump into any other sheets that we have, that would wrap up the discussion for fiscal 20 that I wanted to have.
Well, again, thank you, Mr. Muccio, and the entire CHS team for pulling together and doing such a great job in managing our finances for the past year. Thank you to all.
Yep. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, may we move to a vote then on the treasurer's consent agenda items?
Okay, Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Mr. Naaman.
Aye.
Mrs. Schuker.
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki.
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Mr. Muccio, discussion items.
Yep, just had one discussion item for tonight. Just wanted to inform everybody that our fiscal 20 gap conversion has begun. So we just closed out fiscal 20, and what takes place is our gap conversion. So I'm going to open this report here. This is what they're working on. So this is the prior year's report, June 30th, 2019. So this is 2019's fiscal year gap report. So this report here, which is on the auditor's, the audited reports are going to be on the Auditor State's website, but this is on our website currently right now, 2019's report. It's about, 60 or so pages, a little more, 76 pages. So this is what they're going to be working on beginning right now, the gap report. So we're on a cash basis, and what the auditors are doing is they're converting our cash basis financials to GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, the GAAP basis. We're in the middle of that contract, and the team doing that's the Auditor of State's office doing our GAAP conversion. So Ohio law, ORC 117.38 requires that local public offices file their annual financial reports with the Auditor of State's office. Further, it requires all county, city, school districts, including ESCs and community schools, and government insurance pools to prepare their financial reports pursuant to GAAP. And unless an extension has been approved by the Auditor of State's office, entities filing on a GAAP basis have 150 days following the end of their fiscal year to submit their financial statements to the Auditor of State's office. We had asked for an extension just due to being proactive with the COVID-19 pandemic in case any lockdowns were going to take place. We got a reply back from the Auditor of State's office, and they said that they are not approving any extensions currently for proactive thinking for the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're planning to, hit our mark with plenty of days to not worry about it. And again, 150 days after the close of our fiscal year is around Thanksgiving, just to give everybody an idea. But I just wanted to let everybody know that that process is officially kicked off. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muccio. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins. Just one reminder to anybody listening in that all the attachments referenced are available on the school website. So anybody from the public can go to the school website, go to the board docs, and all those attachments are available to be opened up and printed off if you so choose to. Superintendent's business. Motion to approve the start date for the 2020-21 school year to September 8th, 2020. Superintendent's business agreements, contracts, memberships. A, motion to approve an MOU with Applewood Centers for services to provide prevention education to support Cuyahoga Heights School students, staff, and parents at no cost. B, motion to approve a one-year contract with T-Mobile for the purchase of up to 10 hotspots at $20 each per month. C, motion to approve an agreement with the purchase order with Belfair JBC Monarch School for providing special education and related services to qualified students who reside in the Cuyahoga Heights School District for 2020-21 school year at a cost of $163,770. Superintendent's business employment substitutes. Motion to approve a temporary assignment of Samantha Gambita to the position of long-term substitute teacher kindergarten as a continuation from the 2019-20 school year until the return of the regular classroom teacher. Upon completion of this assignment, Ms. Gambita will return to her current role as a teacher assistant at Cuyahoga Heights Elementary School. And I hold a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
Yes, I have a motion for that. I will make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sounds like Mr. Sujaki came in on the second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, the moving the start date back to September the 8th, and I know we just moved it to the 24th. That's going to give us some additional time with to develop some of the remote learning things, the online, the offsite, which I've started discussions with all three villages. That's moving forward. When I come back around to my comments at the end, I'm going to have Mr. Young update everybody on where we're at with our preparations for the remote learning part of this, and get some additional teacher training for the remote learning. We've got to distribute Chromebooks to all of our students. The principals are working on that plan right now. We've got schedules done. Those schedules will go out shortly. I think either Friday or Monday. The principals are set to send those out, what the online learning is going to look like for the students. So we're moving forward, but the additional time will certainly help us to prepare a little bit more thoroughly as we go into that. The MOU with Applewood Centers, that's free services for Applewood's services, and I'm not going to go in and read the whole thing for you. That's for counseling services as we move forward, and Mr. Burek is kind of taking care of that for us. When your contract with T-Mobile for the purchase of hotspots, one of the things that we know that we need to do right now is we may have to provide some hotspots for students for connectivity if we're going to be remote learning. T-Mobile is got the best price out there right now, so we have additional hotspots. Also, if we develop the sites in the villages, we can put hotspots there and not be a drain on the internet of the villages too. So that's one more way we can help them out by helping us out at that point in time.
I have a question about that. When you open up that, it says $240 a month instead of 10 hotspots. How does,
Dave-
I'm confused about that.
Dave Wallace, where you at?
I believe that's supposed to be 20. I think that's supposed to be 20 hotspots. Is that correct, Dave?
Yes, we upped the amount of hotspots we needed. It's supposed to be 20 at $20 per month, which would be $240 a year. And we're only going to do a 1-year contract and cancel them after that.
Okay.
We originally had 10. We added 10 more hotspots not to exceed, Mrs. Etter. So we just want to make sure we have enough hotspots as we get into this with the remote plan.
All right, but it's gonna be $20 per hotspot and not 240?
The $20 is a monthly charge for the hotspots. T-Mobile is actually giving all the hotspots for free. So basically it would cost us $240 a year per hotspot to fund this program. We also applied for a grant through the state of Ohio that's going to give us about $2,000 to help cover some of these costs.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Belfair JBC Monarch School. Those are 2 students that have been at Monarch for a number of years. That's not additional. Those aren't any additional students. So that's just a continuation of our students that have been there. And then reassignment of Samantha Gambetta. Samantha finished off the year as a long-term sub. She'll start the year as a long-term sub in that same till that teacher returns from their maternity leave.
Hey, Tom, can I add something about,
Sure.
Oh gosh, wait, I have to switch screens. About the Applewood Centers.
Yes.
Just to kind of add, I know that we've gotten a lot of feedback from community members and families just expressing concern about starting remotely because of the social emotional concerns. And so this would be a tool that we're putting into place to kind of help. I read through the contract. It looks like there's prevention ideas and things like that. So that will, it's not a fix all. It's not going to solve every problem, but it's definitely an additional resource that we're bringing on to help with those needs. Correct?
Thank you. You're correct. And actually, we're going to attack the social emotional from a lot of different places. We're we didn't finish off the school year with the nurses last year. We're actually going to use the nurses as a resource for parents to start the school year. Make sure that the parents know how to contact them. So they'll be ready, willing, and able to do that. We're working on strategies with, you already heard what on the high school, some of the extracurriculars are helping us with the social emotional, and we're developing some strategies for those elementary students to get those students connected. I talked to Mr. Tartar at great length today. He has a plan to make some contacts, some unique ways of contacting his kids to make sure that we're closing that gap.
Awesome. Thank you. Good stuff.
Very good. If there's no further discussion, well, let's move to a vote then. Mr. Muccio.
Mr. Dobbins,
Aye.
Mr. Suchaki,
Gary froze up.
I'll skip Gary for the moment. Mrs. Etter,
Aye.
Mrs. Schukert,
Aye.
Mr. Naaman,
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. Mr. Suchaki?
Yeah,
Gary.
I couldn't hear anything, so I did not hear my name called. I'm
You
sorry.
froze up, Gary.
Oh, okay. So,
So,
aye.
okay, very good. Thank you.
Strike that. The motion passes 5-0. Moving on to superintendent's business. Mr. Evans?
A couple of things, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Young here in a second. But last Saturday, I was invited by Mr. Nichols to a gathering. Parents had some concerns, and they really want the students back in school on the hybrid plan early on. And I want to thank Mrs. Schukert, Mr. Young, and Mr. Roy for showing up unsolicited. They came, and but I think we answered a lot of questions. The group had a lot of concerns. We answered, we went around, we spent about an hour and 15 minutes at school on Saturday to try and answer as many questions as we could. Mr. Nichols afterwards said, while I disagree with your decision, Mr. Evans, I respect the fact that you came and addressed us. And I want the feeling to be that I'm going to answer as many questions as I can. And while at some point we may disagree, my goal is and always has been to get our students back in our buildings safely 100%. And that's what we're working toward. And right now, Mr. Young's, I'm going to turn it over to him because he spent a tremendous amount of time since we talked about the remote on getting our staff ready and working on plans to get our students ready. So Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. First, I want to just start off by saying how impressed I am with the leadership that is emerging from every aspect of the school system. This isn't just something the administrative team has been working on. This is coming from our certified staff, our classified staff, even those community members that have participated in the surveys that we have sent out. What we are doing is as comprehensive a document as we can possibly put together that is going to hold our students to high expectations for teaching and learning, as well as keep everybody as safe as possible. So I really have to applaud the leadership from everywhere at this point, because when you have the type of collective efficacy that we have, it sets us up for something that we will not possibly fail at. We are going to be highly successful at this. I'm very confident of that. One of the things that we've heard people say is they're concerned about what this is going to look like, and will it look like it did in the spring. Keep in mind that we had very little notice in the spring to prepare for what that situation was. We didn't even know what the timeline was. In addition, Cuyahoga Heights is a very high achieving school district. We were ranked 31st in the state of Ohio out of over 600 schools last year for our achievement. You don't get that high of a ranking by not having high expectations, highly professional and qualified staff, and support from all around. So when this whole thing broke back in March, a great number of our staff members had fulfilled basically 90% or more of the curriculum as we were getting ready to enter state testing. And as I said, on state tests, we ranked number 31 last year in Ohio. So we are an outstanding school district, and we are going to continue that, because no matter what the environment, we're going to perform at a high level. So things that we are putting in place, we have professional development starting next week. We have 5 full days of professional development that is going to include training on blended learning and different models that can be implemented effectively. We have purchased Zoom licenses for all of our teachers so that we can enhance the capacity to engage students remotely with live interaction. We have purchased a Remind app that's going to improve our communication and streamline that. So there's going to be training on both of those pieces. At the last board meeting, we approved a remote curriculum that will be used as a supplement, not a replacement, but a supplement to guide some of our lessons. We are going to receive some social emotional training. We are going to have some of our teachers showcase some of the successes they had in the spring. We're going to be going over our crisis management plan, because we want to make sure that we have solid plans in place from prevention on. So we're going to have training on that as well as other things with the digital tools that our teachers are going to be using. Following this week of professional development, by the way, that's not just our teaching staff. We're going to be working with our classified staff as well, because we still have food distribution that needs to take place. We need to prepare for that. We have the partnership with our villages for some off-site potential, so we need to prepare for that. We have the Career Center that is still running, and so we have transportation routes that are going to have to be modified so that we can get those students, which most are returning in person to the Career Center, so we have to accommodate those things. And we have to prepare for reopening. So we are being proactive. We're not only preparing for the remote learning that we're going to excel at, but we also have to prepare for reopening. So we're not just living in one mode at this point. We are preparing for multiple modalities of learning and to be flexible as the year continues. After the week of professional development, what we have to do then is we have to prepare for diagnostic testing, because we still have to administer the KRA for our kindergarten students. We also have to do iretic diagnostics for grades K through 6, so that we can really look at and analyze the effect that the COVID slide had on our learning. You know, we've heard of the summer slide, but there's a COVID slide that's on top of a typical summer slide. So we need to do some of that initial diagnostic data with 7 of our grade levels, just to see what the impact of not being in school that last quarter had on our students. We also have to distribute Chromebooks. I have to applaud Mr. Wallace and his team and the technology committee here on the board for embracing a one-to-one mentality. We have more than enough devices to provide to our students, as well as utilize our Bring Your Own Device program as well. Between those two, we will ensure that every student has a device that is going to utilize the applications our teachers are going to be using. In addition, we also are considering those Wi-Fi hotspots, which is what we were discussing when Mr. Muccio was talking earlier. So we're trying to really meet the needs of every student through this process, but we have to distribute all of those materials, whether it's the textbooks, the workbooks, as well as the Chromebooks, the syllabi of the teachers, all the login codes. All that has to be distributed so that we get those in the hands of the students, so we can have some time to troubleshoot to ensure that everything is operating properly. Starting at the end of that week of the 24th, we will then start doing our diagnostic testing. We do not want that to interrupt our learning once that gets going. So we want to kind of devote time just for that. So those students who are going to be doing the diagnostic testing at the end of the week of the 24th, and then the beginning of the week of the 31st, will be notified by their building principals and then their teachers. So we can expect communication to be coming out very soon from the building leadership, and then following that coming from our staff members. On September 3rd, we plan to begin with a soft start, so to speak. We are going to have students run through their we basically have 3 days. We have Scarlet Days, we have Gray Days, and then we have what are called Heights Days that are built into our schedule. We will run through a soft start of our Scarlet Day on Thursday the 3rd, in which students will log on with their Zoom access codes. They are going to meet their teachers that are part of the Scarlet Day schedule. We will get to know one another, and we're going to ensure that all technology, all links are working at that time. On Friday, we will implement our Gray Day, so that the other half of the student's schedule will be tested, and students will be able to meet their staff as well. Then we go into Labor Day weekend, and then we will start officially on the 8th with a schedule that has been collaboratively created with our Teachers Association and with our support staff, that is in line with what research has said is a digestible amount of teaching and learning that can possibly take place in a day. Our goal is not to overwhelm students. It's not to overwhelm staff. We want to set people up for success, and students will be running through a very well thought out schedule. We heard from the community. We heard from our staff. We need structure. We're going to provide that structure. We are going to be going through a typical school day. So you can expect to have live interaction with your teachers through a variety of different means and a variety of different delivery methods, but it will be live interaction. So we are going to get to know our kids. We are going to have the conversations. We are going to devise lessons that are going to help them grow, because we're very committed to ensuring that our students are not at a disadvantage compared to other school districts. And we do not want students in the remote environment to be at a disadvantage to students who came prior to them who did not experience a remote learning environment, and potentially those who come after, who may return back to a more normal setting, whether it's this year, next year, whenever that is. So we're going to start on the 8th with a full teaching day based on the schedules that will be communicated from our building leadership as well as our teachers. Wednesday would be a gray day. We will not take the Heights Day on that Wednesday because of the Labor Day holiday. And then we would go scarlet and then gray. So we would have 4 days of instruction starting the week of the 8th. And then the week of the 14th, we would start our 5-day schedule, with Wednesdays being what we call Heights Days, which are days that we are going to have office hours, intervention and enrichment, professional development, troubleshooting for our staff, clubs and activities we'll be able to meet. We'll be able to do a lot of social emotional connections. Our school counselors at all 3 buildings will be able to connect with their students. It's really a day that is going to be very unique to Cuyahoga Heights, and it's going to allow us to build those relationships on a day devoted to the bonds that our teachers, staff members, and our students are used to having. So I really, again, I want to go back and I want to applaud everybody who has either helped build this schedule or are in support of it, because again, you know, this is only going to go well if the people buy into it. And I feel like we are all pulling on the same rope. We're all pulling in the same direction. And I'm really proud of the work that everybody that's part of the Cuyahoga Heights team is putting into this. So thank you, Mr. Evans, also for your leadership, and to the Board of Education for supporting Mr. Evans in his efforts. It's tough to be a school leader, but Mr. Evans is a leader to be proud of. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And I want to go through, and I know some of you board members have heard this, but if we have some people listening in, and this is maybe a little redundant for the people that might have been there Saturday, and I want to talk a little bit about the process that brought us to the remote recommendation. If you remember, at the last board meeting, we spent a lot of time going over the hybrid plan. That was on a Wednesday. We had met with the County Board of Health. The local superintendents, county superintendents meet with the Board of Health online, have met online every Friday for the last 4 weeks, and we'll continue to meet through this entire process. The County Board of Health gave us no indication whatsoever that they were going to make a recommendation. As a matter of fact, the County Board of Health, up to their recommendation that Friday, had not deviated from the Ohio Board of Health's recommendation at all. And then 2 days later on that Friday, we were that's when the County Board of Health came out with their 2 recommendations, and that was that all schools in the county begin school with a remote learning plan. And the second recommendation was that once the remote learning plan began, that all extracurriculars cease at that time. So I talked with 4 of the 5 board members that weekend about that, and that's when on Monday I announced that we were going to go to that. So I think some of the people have said they want to know why, and that was how the change occurred from when we originally talked about the hybrid plan. My goal remains the same: to get our students back in our buildings as soon as possible. The talks with the County Board of Health, some people said, hey, you're disregarding what the CDC says and the American Association of Pediatricians. Absolutely not. But the County Board of Health is the first local data that we've had to formulate a decision on. And I've said, I'm an educator. I need someone from the public health sector to provide some guidance for us. And the numbers that they presented that Friday were the first numbers, the first data that leads us to the decision-making process. People want to know, what's it going to take for us to get back into school? I can rest assured we're not going to wait for the level to come back to yellow, to go from red to yellow. But they talked a lot with us about the numbers, the number of occurrences, the percentages of positive tests, and we're going to keep our eye on that. And those are also 3-week trend data. So we watch those every Friday as they get updated. I'll be discussing with the board where those numbers are, where those numbers need to be for us to get back in school. And we're going to give everybody plenty of notice that, hey, we're going to be back in school in a week or a week and a half's time to prepare for that. So that's how we're moving forward. The other question I know a lot of parents with students that receive IEP services and 504 services want to know how we were going to meet those needs. The County Board of Health has given us some latitude. to bring students in individually and groups under the size of 10 to do some counseling, to do some work with. And the IEP students will be our first contacts. One of the things that we have to take into consideration, that's strictly a parental decision. Sometimes our kids that are on a 504 might have some underlying health issues that the parents don't want them in the building. We'll do what we can to reach out to them, but that's the first group that we're going to reach out at to get back in the building, working with our special needs people to making sure that we're meeting the requirements of those IEPs, because we recognize the frustration that some of those parents went through. The scheduling, a lot of time and effort gone into the scheduling, and Mr. Young talked about that a little bit. And the last time the parents said, two things the parents said, that we're not teachers and we were overwhelmed. Parents, please understand that the remote learning plan is not designed for you to be the teachers. Our teachers are going to teach. We want parents to go back to doing what parents do, reading with your children at night. If they have a special project that they need some assistance on, to be there for that. This is not, as Mr. Young said, designed to look anything like what last spring looked like. This is going to be teacher-led instruction. There will be projects and things. We invested in some new technology that will allow the classes to break out into small groups online, to do some small group work and some small group discussion. We'll use that same to do some counseling with students, some one-on-one counseling, some one-on-one discussions with students as well. So we're working on it every day, our noses to the grindstone on this, and we're committed to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans and Mr. Young. With limited knowledge of the extraordinary amount of effort that you and so many others have put into this, and one of our virtues in this time is that we are a small school district, and certainly a highly achieving one. I'm very confident that we're going to have an excellent remote system, and look forward to the day when our students can get back in the classroom. So thank you to everyone who has had a hand in this. And I know that I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg when I acknowledge Mr. Evans and Mr. Young. There are so many more people that have had a hand in this. So thank you.
And I want to thank the parents too. There's parents on all sides of this, and please understand that when we get contacts, when we get suggestions, when you reach out to us, I think I've returned as many emails as I possibly can, that we hear what you're saying and we're taking those into consideration as we go through this. I don't want you to, at any point in time, to think that we're turning a deaf ear. On the website will be the individual administrators' email addresses, so you don't have to go to info@CUYHDS anymore. So if it's an elementary question, you need to go directly to Mrs. Houchin, or a technology question, you need to go directly to Mr. Wallace, or something that needs to come directly to me. You'll be able to do so as a parent. So we're gonna get that modification in, and I'm gonna, much of what I said today, I'm gonna repeat in Tom Talks this week, and we're gonna try and not only shoot that stuff out via email, but also send hard copies out as well to make sure that we're reaching everyone. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there any other items that the board members would like to discuss this evening? Or do the board members have any comments?
I was going to save mine just for when we do. Are we on board comment part?
Yes, sure.
We are?
Yeah, we can be flexible. So we're at
Okay.
superintendent's reports, comments is finished. We're at board committee comments and reports.
Okay.
So yes.
Yeah, I'll start.
Please.
Is it okay?
Yes.
I just want to say, just thank you to the community members that have reached out. Most of them have been completely respectful, even if they're not in agreement with some of the choices we've made so far. But I just think that feedback is crucial right now. And so thank you to everyone that's called, texted, stop by my house, just personally, like there's so many people that are reaching out, and, I urge people to continue to do that if they have concerns. The other thing I would say is, just a good, good luck to everybody starting off the year, because will be our last board meeting before that starts. I know this year is met with a lot of different types of feelings, but I think Mr. Young is saying it best, and Mr. Evans, when they are just very confident we're going to go ahead and have a great year. So with that confidence, I'm able to be confident as a parent with kids that will be coming back. And that's all I have, I think, at this point.
Thank you, Mrs. Schukert. Mrs. Utter, do you have anything this evening?
I just also want to say, well, back to Matt for all his work with the accounting and the end of year reports and in his great explanations. Thank you very much with all of that. And, you know, at one point I thought we were worried that we were going to end in a deficit. So it's really good that we're projected with better numbers than we thought. And in regards to all of this, remote planning, remote learning for our students and what's ahead for them. Again, you know, these are uncharted territory for everyone. We're not alone in trying to make the best decision for our students. And I think that is probably what we have to remember, is that we are a group of people, an entity that is what we try to do, is put the best interests of our students first, and appreciate the fact that we have so many dedicated people, passionate people, engaged people who do that at our district. And so, again, none of us have that magical crystal ball to know what lies ahead in the future. It's my only hope that things get better before they get worse, and that, you know, what the plans that we're making right now are the best choices that we have right now for our students. That's all. Thank you again for everybody who's being involved in getting this done.
Thank you. Mr. Naaman.
Yes, thank you. So first off, I'd like to thank Mr. Evans and Mr. Young. I think that you've been really strong leaders throughout this. This was unprecedented time, and it really and it's difficult to navigate through a lot of things when basically we're not medical professionals, or we have a lack of guidance in what to do. You know, from us, and I think that we have to be looking always out for the kids, the safety of the kids, doing the right things. And I think that you put together a great plan of going remotely, and there's a lot of great reasons to do that. And so thank you for your team and the people that have put together plans. I think, you know, we'll get through together. I'd like to thank the parents too, because I've taken phone calls. I've read every email that I've gotten, every single one. I see both perspectives, kind of ways between look at the benefits and you know, look at things from this perspective. And we are making the best decision for the school and the kids and the safety of you know, the other thing I would like to thank is Mr. Wallace and Mr. Hartman, Mr. Young. We met as a technology committee yesterday. What Mr. Young referred to one-to-one plan is actually really good. It can help with the students in progressing. Do you have a computer throughout their careers here at Cuyahoga Heights? And you know, it's a great plan that's addressing, you know, not only the security of the systems, but also the assets track and distribution of those to other people that so the device to use, you know, whether we're in class or outside of class. So again, thank you all very much too as well. That's all.
Thanks, Mr. Naaman. Mr. Sajaki, do you have anything this evening?
Yeah, well, as Mr. Naaman said, the technology committee met yesterday or the day before. I don't remember which now. Yesterday. And we talked about the one-to-one program that was already planned for next year. And obviously we need to have it this year. So there has been a lot of work on the IT staff to make that happen. You know, we already had most of the hardware in place. We already have all the devices. We just had to move up the planning. And I say just, but I know it was a lot of work on the IT staff and Mr. Young to make that happen. We've moved up our one-to-one program from next school year to this school year. Students need to learn how to use these tools anyway. As Mr. Young pointed out during our meeting, he had a plumber or somebody come to his house, and the person had a computer that he was on. All people need to know how to use these devices in their work life. We need to start at the school level and make it just ordinary part of the day. And that's what we're moving toward. Of course, our one-to-one program allows you to bring your own device if you have one. If you don't, as you know, the Chromebooks will be provided, hotspots will be provided as necessary. The devices have a rotation on them. There's a 4-year rotation of devices. They will be replaced every 4 years. When the high schoolers get their devices, they'll be able to keep them until they're seniors and then have the option of purchasing them when their school career is done. So I think it's an excellent plan. I'm very pleased with what I've heard from the IT group and Mr. Young and everything they've done. And I'll tell you, as I've listened to tonight's meeting, I just have such an enormous sense of pride, and I'm so thankful to be part of this district because we are truly all pulling together to do the best we can under some of the most difficult circumstances we've seen as a people in the last 100 years. And I'm just so thankful that I can be part of this astounding group of educators, parents, students, and residents. So, and that's all I have, Mr. Dobbin.
Thank you. Let's move on now to item 14. Are there any future agenda items that the board members want to bring forth tonight? Hearing none, we'll move forward to item 15, agenda information. It should be noted that the Board of Education members received their agendas several days prior to the actual meeting. Thus, they have had considerable opportunity to study it, ask questions, etc. 15B, upcoming regular meetings. Regular board meetings are scheduled for Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on the following dates: August 26th, 2020, September 9th, and September 23rd, 2020. May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
So Ms. Schuchert moved. Mr. Jockey, you want the second?
That's fine.
I'll take a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 I hear 5 ayes, no nays. This meeting is adjourned. It's 8:35, and thanks to all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.